Hello and welcome to this 5-minute teaching on the supernatural love of God. I'm Pastor Jack Shoup with Grace Fellowship of Georgetown, Kentucky. We've been talking about walking in supernatural agape. God's declared He's coming in the end times. He's coming back for a glorious bride. And I believe God's raising up a church right now that's learning to walk in such levels of agape, it overflows as the Shekinah glory of God. And it's a love that's going to transform the earth. It's going to bring in God's harvest. It's going to cause us to walk in eternal peace and joy even now on this earth before we have to leave this body and go to the third heaven. And so I want to know, how can we walk in this love? And we've been reading out of 1 Peter chapter 2, where it says, seeing you have purified your souls through obeying the truth, the word, by the Spirit-led, unto unfeigned love of the brethren. And God said, I need my people to get a hold of spending time in the Word so it changes how they think. And once the Word changes how they think, it'll change how they act. And we discover that phrase, love of the brethren, is not the word agape. It's a word, Philadelphia. And it's the highest level, I believe, that unredeemed man can walk in. The heathen, the wicked, can walk in some level of Philadelphia, being considerate one toward another. But God said, I'll have my people walking in it all the time if they'll just let the word change how they think, respond, think, and treat other people. And so the love of the brethren becomes the highest level of natural love we can walk in. But the passage doesn't stop there. It says, see that you agape one another with a pure heart fervently. In other words, God's saying when you walk in Philadelphia, it's just the launching point. It's the seed. It's the step of faith you take to step into supernatural agape. The word supernatural itself, think about it like this, is God's super added to our natural. And if we'll step out with the best of our ability and be considerate towards other people, walk in Philadelphia, be a giver, live our life as a seed, and be decreeing and expecting for agape to come on us, I believe in these end times it's going to come on us. And I believe He's raising up a church it's going to remain upon. And we will walk 100% of the time inundated with God's presence, with His joy, having a supernatural peace that passes knowledge, that everybody we come in contact with is going to want to get saved. God's going to bring in His last day harvest with nets instead of a hook and line. And I believe the net He's going to use to bring in His harvest is supernatural agape. But we've got to get to the place where we're believing it. We've got to speak it and say, I walk in not just Philadelphia, I walk in agape. Speak that word agape. And I walk in supernatural love, and it manifests as the glory, so that you're positioned yourself to see supernatural love come upon you. There's another place I want to look at this word Philadelphia is used, that we can see it's a stepping stone, a launching point to agape. In 2 Peter chapter 1, I want to start reading at verse number 1. Well, we may come back to this. Let's start in the middle, just for the sake of the time in this session. If we start reading at verse number 5, it says, let me find it here. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, self-control, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness. All of these initial ones, there are 8 steps. I call this God's stairway to agape. The first step really reflects some level of fruit. It's God changing how you think to change how you respond, and all of a sudden you're walking in higher levels of knowledge, of patience, of self-control, of integrity, of faith. We'll teach probably in the future it in more depth on each of these. But he says, I need you to walk in this fruit, and he ends up with the next one. He says, and adding to your patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness. Brotherly kindness, there's Philadelphia again. He says, I need you to walk in natural fruit, and the outcome is going to be you'll be walking in full-time brotherly consideration. But then he says this, step number 8. And to godliness, brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness, agape, charity, supernatural love. He says, my goal is as you walk in brotherly consideration, which is natural love that you've learned to walk in because you've renewed your mind by the word, but you're using your faith now to step into agape. Let's don't stop short. Let's believe for God's best. Let's target the glory. But we got to believe for it, act on it, and speak it into our lives. Be blessed.